anything in particular that, any thoughts on that? That was just my only question.
In what way do you mean? In like a whole new building?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think one of the hard things for us is that we're separated. You know, we have 2 classrooms in the preschool, and then we have the 3 up here. And I think that's hard. There's a disconnect. I think that's the hard part. And especially, I mean, COVID doesn't help, because normally we'd all be, you know, I usually invite people to my house for dinner parties, and you just make those connections even outside of work, which builds those relationships. So I think that just having those 2 classrooms down there, that does add a little bit of disconnect. I would love to see all 5 classrooms in the same building.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, shall we move on to 6 discussion items on the bond update, 6.1?
Susan,
Thanks, Simone.
Adam Good came back on, and he's ready to speak if we want to bounce back to that.
Let's go, 3 minutes to Adam.
All right. Hi. Thank you. I had some technical issues. Sorry. I guess I've got 3 quick things I want to address. First, overall, I just over the last month, I've noticed an increase of communication from administration and to our staff here at the middle school, and I just really appreciate that. It means a lot to me personally to have that connection with my administration and my bosses, and to have some sort of relationship there. And I think it's really gone a long way with just how everyone's feeling and our spirit down here at the middle school. So I really appreciate that. The second thing, I want to bring up housing again. I don't know if we've put a plan in place for some sort of housing committee or a system in place to help manage how our housing is handled. I do think this is a big priority right now with the bond being passed and housing being a big part of that. I would encourage you to create a thoughtful, inclusive system that takes in the needs of those who are actually pursuing housing on a regular basis. And if I can help in any way, I'm happy to do that. And I know there's other staff members that would like to contribute. And finally, just to highlight our STEM program again at the middle school. I know some of you saw our snowflakes at the breakfast. Will and I are just so thankful for your support. I mean, it's a year of COVID, and we've gotten a lot of things that most schools don't even have. And we're just so appreciative. I came back to class today, and a few students were so excited about our class. Santa brought them 3D printers this year, and it's just so cool to hear that they're doing this on their own, even without us. So again, thanks for your support. We're excited for the rest of the year, and to think about what we can do without these constraints coming next year. The sky's the limit. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. So bond update. Is that Dave?
Actually, we'll flip that over to Linda, and I'll let her talk about that a little bit. It's definitely something, after our last board meeting, we've had 5 days counting today of business days, but we were able to answer some of the questions from the last board meeting around sort of the bond resolution, figured out the numbers around that. And so that's this evening's presentation, or conversation rather. So Linda, I know you put the ribbon on this package, so why don't I kick it over to Linda?
Okay, thank you. Can you all hear me okay? I'm good. Okay, thank you. Let's talk about the reimbursement resolution, because that was what was brought in front of you all last board meeting. And there were questions around what things we could go back and grab cost-wise and what dollar amount we should put in there. And after many conversations, or seemed like many in the few days we had with Dan O'Connell, decided that this is really, it's not the Price is Right. You know, it's not a magic dollar amount that you can be too high on. So we decided to put this together at $10 million to put on there, knowing that that's really probably not what we're going to spend, but let's put it in there for that. And it's just to fill the gap of using general fund money until we issue our bonds. So it's just that gap period in there of 60 days. He said, Dan did say too, that we can go back and grab some costs, like from the Cunningham Group, and charge that into our bond. So we'll, be putting some stuff together once we go to the bond issuance. And then also after our conversation with him, we think that it's a good decision to start moving forward with the first issuance of our bond. And it will take about 2.5 months to get all the paperwork together and go to market on that, on the first issuance. So look for information coming on that. It's just probably will not be too much on the board's behalf on the first issuance. It's just a lot over in my area, getting all the legal documents, the prospectus and stuff, all the old financial information and all that together. So that's what the reimbursement resolution is. And then the second is the RFP we put together for the owner's representation services. And we've been trying to, it's all new territory for us here. So I appreciate everybody's patience on where we're trying to post these things and get the word out on the street. We put it out on a website called BidNet, and then found out that some people that wanted to participate in a bid were having difficulty seeing this RFP out on that website. So then I put it on another link underneath financial transparency. I don't think that's the best home for it, but we're working on it, and we're going to get better as we start moving forward on this bond. So I don't want you to lose faith in us on, on where we're putting this stuff. We're just trying to figure out the best place.
And it is important to note, Linda, that we have quite a bit of interest in the RFP. We've heard from quite a number of vendors asking for a couple items of clarity, and should I still apply if I haven't done a lot of schoolwork, stuff like that. And, we've said yes, and they're reaching out to Jorge and myself. And so we're trying to respond to them in a timely fashion. But so there is quite a bit of interest in the RFP. So, $95 million tends to get some folks' attention.
Yeah.
So
on that, I'm going to open it up to any questions if anybody has any additional questions on either of those two items.
Linda?
Yes.
Couple of questions and a statement as well. On the resolution that you're asking for us, I assume you're looking for us to take action this evening. So you may want us to, make a formal vote yet right here on the topic. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah.
And then you'll have, I think Eliza will do a DocuSign for us. We can quickly get that circulated around with President and Secretary. That's good. And I agree that I want to underscore your conversation with Dan O'Connell and the particular point so that the public is aware. Those efforts and expenses that the district incurred, that the district went quote unquote at risk on in terms of organizing and establishing the detail and the reasons for the ask, put aside the political campaign, but the actual study, the analyses, which, as you said, Cunningham Group, Gilbert Sanchez, those are two professional service providers. We had a third, service provider to help us with the surveys and the polling. So all that work is indeed by law, by statute, reimbursable dollars that the district can and should reimburse itself, so that the general fund dollars are focused on the general fund focus and efforts, and that is, obviously teaching kids. So I just want to underscore that. And then secondly, back over to the owner's rep piece. If it pleases the board, I'd like to be able to participate at least in some of the reviews or all of the reviews of the proposals that we receive on the owner's rep assignment. I think that's a pretty important assignment, and I've got some particular industry experience there, and I'd love to be able to kind of lean in a bit to help staff and in this interim period. And as we all look forward to hiring that person or entity, we obviously need to carry the water here together. But once you get that person or entity into place, it's going to be some exciting times for the community, because we can kind of catch our pace together with the issuance of the first tranche of the bonds. So in my view, there's a lot of, frankly, anticipation and excitement for some first priorities, which have already been touched upon. If you think about childcare, we talked about that. We talked about housing with the public comment. So those are all on top of the radar for the community. So thank you.
Dwayne, to build on what you said, my first question was going to be, has Dwayne looked at this RFP in full detail? Because I know the amount of experience you bring in this stuff is a tremendous asset. So
yeah. Linda and Dave had circulated previously. Yep. And so they've got several good inputs. I think they've got a really strong document that requests all the needs and wants that we'll have for this particular role and position through the life of the capital the capital projects.
I do question the timeline though. Are we really going to get this stuff back in a week from now, or 11, 12 days or something? Is that realistic?
Yes. I think we're definitely going to get some responses, and I think we're going to get a set of good caliber, high caliber responses. That's the whole point of it too. It's iterative. There may be some additional information that we might want from a subset or the entire universe of respondents. We may even, push it back once we determine that the January 15th deadline is too tight. So there is some, flexibility that's inherent in any of these types of proposals and processes.
Okay. Then I had a question on the reimbursement resolution line. Bullet point 1 has the date of December 14th on it, or at least the version I have up. Should that get changed? I don't believe we adopted it at the last board meeting.
You're right. We that needs to be today's date.
Okay.
Eliza, can we change that on here before we?
Yeah, I'll change it before we send out for signatures.
Yes.
And change it to the 4th day of January.
Thank you. That was a good catch, because that's an important date, because the clock starts ticking.
Yeah.
Once it's on there. So we need to, and we haven't, yeah.
And then related to the date, per Dwayne's comment about the reimbursement for things like the Cunningham Group, we're not limiting ourselves, or are we limiting ourselves by having the 60-day thing in here?
That is not subject to the 60 days.
Okay, just to be clear. Good.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Very good question. That's exactly what we were asking Dan.
Okay, well, I thought so. I just wanted to triple check, because it's a big, it's a significant expense. And then my other question is, we had talked at the last board meeting among ourselves about the possibility of more than one issuance and going to market early, and I'm fully supportive of going out there as soon as we can. There is, the cost estimate for going out twice was significant. So my assumption is we've not precluded going out for the full amount in one tranche. Is that correct?
That is correct. The number I think that was being thrown around a little bit was 60 million was the first issuance.
So why not the whole thing? I guess that's the.
Because we do have that timeline. I actually, if we have this owner's rep you know, if we have this person on board or that group on board and more information comes to light that we can move along a little faster, then we could change that amount. We have 2.5 months, it's going to take to put all the documentation together.
So is it, having not worked on one of these before, we go down a path of due diligence, the amount is set directionally at the beginning, but it can change. I understand the precise amount will absolutely change, but the directional amount, 60 versus 95 is a big difference. That can change up to the 11th hour, or?
Yes.
Yeah. And Katie, we talked at length about this with Dan O'Connell. And, our question to him was, why don't we just go ahead and issue the full amount right up front? And the cost of the debt is the reason you would delay it. You would take 2 runs or 2 tranches, right? And it's that debt cost compared to the cost of issuing the second tranche that is sort of Linda and her sort of magic numbers would come into play when we get closer to, do we think we can, I hate to say it, we're pretty sure that we can take a big chunk of 95 in 3 years. There's just a lot of work to be done to the campus and to the housing, and that's going to go fast. And I actually have a meeting with quite a few other similar entities on Thursday to discuss the housing thing, because some of the entities have land and a little bit of money, and we have some money, and we're going to try to see if we can't leverage what money we do have with some of the land that some of the entities have to see if we can't get to 75 or more units for our staff, because
Fabulous.
the housing is just a huge problem for the school district, for the county, for the city, for Colorado Mountain College. I'm trying to think who else, but nobody has enough housing for their staff. But some people have land, some people have some money. And we're going to try to see if we can't forge some partnerships here this week.
Great. Good moves. So we will be revisiting this dollar amount over the next 2.5 months. And
and the only dollar amount you're approving now is sort of the upfront 10 million figure. It's not the 60 versus 95.
No, I understand that. It just sounded like the first issuance discussion was like a done deal, that there would be a second one. I get the carrying cost of the debt versus the cost of the issuance, but I also understand that interest rates are not going lower. So, there's balancing all those macroeconomic factors as well that I think, we need to consider.
Yeah.
I am not concerned about being able to spend money, and we're doing a vast amount of this on housing very quickly. So we want to do it right, obviously, and not just look to spend it quickly. So I look forward to more conversation about this.
Yep.
Yeah, and just a clarification, so independent of when we finally decide to go, basically what we'll be approving today is just saying, I have the ability to claw back some expenses prior to 60 days from this date. And then basically we're committing to going out within 18 months as kind of the first thing. Yeah, okay.
Susan?
So that gives us plenty of flexibility.
Any question, comment? Great.
No, thanks. It looks good.
Thanks. And good on the RFP as well. I didn't have any comments.
Are we ready then to move on to 6.2, the superintendent update?
Great, thank you. It's kind of a
Sort of the highlight of the meeting, I would say. We gave you an extra 5 minutes this week, didn't we?
gee, thanks. And 5 days of work to try to generate some topics. But first,
maybe in line with what we said about the public comment, I don't know if it might be good to have AEA go first if they're here, because I think that at least what I saw in the presentation is relevant to answering things about that will probably come up in Dave's presentation. Am I correct in that?
Dave,
yeah, I think so.
do we have the AEA go next? So
Are they on? Hi, Stephanie.
Here's Stephanie. So we'll pivot to 6.3 AEA update. Go Stephanie, you're on.
Sure. Good evening. I think I can share my screen. Like I am allowed. You got it? Sweet. Okay, so the AEA update is just us kind of showing you all what data we've been looking at and just making sure that we're all on the same page in terms of what data we look at on a regular basis. So I'm literally just going to go through the Pickens County COVID data, some of the deep dive data, and then some of the numbers from the ASD dashboard. So we've got 363 individual cases since 2/22/20. The incidence rate in the county is at 1785 since the 21st. And Pickens County has the second highest incidence rate in the state as of today. The COVID dashboard data from before break. In the schools, 6 students tested positive for COVID-19 the week of 12/14. That represents a significant increase from previous weeks in the increased presence of infection in the community. 213 people were in quarantine from exposure at the school district on 12/20. That also represents 6 children who had to isolate from their families for Christmas. And further, Aspen Elementary had no administrators in attendance in person the last few days of school due to exposure. Positivity rate. Right now we stand at 12.1 for the community as a whole and 15.0 for children. It's the highest rate that has ever been for children since we started the pandemic. There have been 42 cases since 12/21. I have to move it so I can see my face. Detailed positivity rate for children. For children 0 to 13, the positivity rate is 16%. For children ages 10 to 17, the positivity rate is 14%. For children ages 5 to 13, the positivity rate is 15%. Our 7-day test positivity rate for children right now is at 26%. We've been looking at equity in the workforce. Pickens County's numbers show 13.5% of the cases since 12/21/20 have affected the Hispanic population. We're working to ensure equality and workplace safety. So access to district computers for testing, for signing up for testing. They don't have smartphones. How can we get them access to computers so they can sign up for the curative testing? And then access to break areas that aren't shared. A lot of our classified staff and some of our non-classified staff don't have any access to break areas that are not shared. So if they're reporting to the building, we're trying to keep them isolated from other staff members to prevent spread. And then just to sum up, we're concerned that adequate instruction isn't being met with our current practice, and we're concerned that too many faculty, staff, and students are being exposed. Thank you.
Can I just address one thing on the signups for testing, since I'm intimately involved with this? It is not an issue. If somebody hasn't signed up ahead of time that is an adult staff member, not a child, adult staff member, they show up, it takes about 15 seconds to get them a new appointment. And that has happened many, many, many times. It is really not an issue. We do not do that for children. They're minors. We can't tell if they don't have an appointment, they do not get an appointment instantly. But adults who have already signed up, have already gone through the waiver process, it is really not an issue at all. So it's taken care of.
Right. Any other, yeah, go ahead.
Stephanie, I just had a question about whether the positivity rates that you put in here are for just our school district, or they're for the county, or I wasn't clear on who you were including. They're from Pickens County?
Yep.
Do we have any just for the school district?
The ones that were on the dashboard from last week. We could probably pull.
Because we haven't we just tested today.
Yeah.
So
right.
since we weren't testing for 2 weeks during break, the positivity rate in town for children probably went up because of that.
But what I'm wondering is, just of those 6 cases on December 14th, I didn't know how many tests we did. Like I just was curious about school district numbers versus the county. So I think, and obviously, you know, all of that will change when we get this next round of tests back, but I just think that's kind of a piece that we should look at as well.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I got one.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Stephanie, for the inputs. Tell me, based on all of that data and the progress and positioning of it at today's positions, do you guys does AEA have a solidified position statement for what the district should do, or is there some sort of consensus opinion across AEA? Consensus opinion being defined as 50% plus one.
We haven't surveyed members. We are more than happy to do that.
I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm just curious as to where you are.
Consensus. Yeah, we can definitely, if you'd like us to do a survey on that, we are definitely willing to do that.
I'm not asking you, please don't take my comments as direction at all. Yes. I'm wanting to understand better and further gain appreciation for where AEA as a body stands. And so, you know, please proceed how you see fit. But I was just curious as of tonight.
I think it changes, you know, as the data we know very rapidly changes. We know that I think, I don't want to say attitudes, but I want to say the level of where everybody is feeling in terms of exposure changes as the data changes. So right now we don't have, you know, a solid statement as we just came back from break, but I think we just keep trying to look at the data and make decisions the best we can based on the facts that we have.
Jonathan, do you have any comments, questions?
It's actually on another thing. Stephanie, I know we got a bunch of stuff coming across. I saw an email later today about public comment as well. So it would, not that it's not, you know, like things that we can look at and key issues and all that kind of stuff, but just if we can prioritize, you know, when you guys see those things, and maybe look for a more efficient way to have those issues brought up than just a group email to the whole board, I would love that. Maybe we could accumulate those additional issues and just kind of do it once or something, just to make life, you know, a little more efficient for everybody and to be able to keep better track of them. Because in the way that you get a kind of one-off email every other week, then it's a lot easier to lose it if you guys carry along like some kind of list that we can have that we're looking at, and we can kind of get back and make sure that we're having an adequate response. That would be helpful. So that would be my only other observation.
Okay. We do meet with upper admin every week. So they do have a running agenda and a running list, and we do address most of our concerns with upper admin versus the board, because most of those are upper admin concerns. But yes, if you'd prefer, I can keep a running list going for BOE if you'd like.
Yeah, if there's something like that, just so that we can be a little more efficient and then like review, hey, these are the things that we'd like to see, as opposed to just kind of an email every time something comes up, because it just becomes harder, at least personally for me, to keep track of and make sure we're getting a response back.
Sure.
Jonathan, I just want to clarify, are you suggesting she bring them to the AEA report at the board meeting? Or
yeah, I think that would be more efficient as opposed to individual emails, and just kind of put them in a presentation like we're getting now, and then it's also then available for everybody to see as a public matter, as opposed to just getting written to the board in itself. I mean, obviously, if there's something that you think is appropriate only for the board members, Stephanie, I mean, obviously share that with us.
Right.
But I was just thinking, I mean, this was kind of like an administrative thing, no big deal, you know, and so it would just be good to carry a consolidated list of that in this same kind of presentation. Just other items would be great.
I think that I agree. That makes sense. All right.
I think we're just sensitive to putting you all on blast in a board meeting. That's not what we're here for. So I think we're pretty sensitive to what is public knowledge, what's a public concern and what's not. So if I can sort those out for you, of course, and have a public knowledge, for AEA update during the board meeting, and things that aren't for public consumption put into a document for email, if that sounds good.
Yeah, and just consolidate so that, and if you want to update us with an email every 15 days, like we get in the board meeting, that would be great, as opposed to kind of getting the drip just gets harder. And obviously we're getting a ton of, COVID related emails. And so this stuff can get lost in the mass, I guess is what I want to say. And plus then we feel like, we have to respond quickly, and, we've already set up a response, and that takes away time from other priorities that might be more pressing. So it's just to kind of like make things administratively flow a little more efficiently for everybody. That's it.
Sure.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it.
Thank you, Jonathan. And shall we go back to the superintendent update, or does anybody else have a comment before we do that? Question or comment? No, we're good.
Susie, can I ask a question? So right now we have AEA every other meeting. Is that how it's still going to be moving forward?
We used to, I liked how we alternated DAC and AEA.
Okay.
So each of them come once a month. Stephanie, is that news to you, that that's how we used to do it, and that's how we'd like to, now that we're trying to keep our meetings 2 to 2.5 hours instead of 9 hours like we used to do?
Yeah, and I think we're sensitive to the fact that if we don't have anything to present, we won't.
Okay.
For sure.
Great, thank you. Okay, back to Dave.
Great. Great, thank you, Susie. First, I want to thank Simone for that terrific update on the cottage. Simone has not been the director at the cottage for long, but she's been doing just a first-rate job. And boy, she gets her 10,000 steps in probably by 10 a.m. most days. You see her flying back and forth between locations. So she's doing a fantastic job, and really pulling the team together. And so Simone, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Then the other sort of light lift is to address Adam and the housing issue. I sort of touched on it. Dan and Linda have been working on putting together sort of making a housing lottery fair and open and transparent, trying to get away from the perception that you had to know somebody to get something. So there seems to have been a perception there that I heard about before I was even hired officially for that. So Dan and Linda have been doing a lot of work around the process for acquiring units. And then on the other side, there's the bond piece where we're trying to get more units and then figure out how to take care of the units we have. So it is a little bit messy at the moment, but we're working on that. And as I mentioned, we have some of the major folks in the Valley talking this week about sort of leveraging and stretching the limited resources all of us have to increase employee housing. So, Adam, I want you to know there will come a time, and we will tap you on the shoulder and put you to work on helping with that. And then I want to try to address both Stephanie's presentation and Tamara's concerns. I do want to thank all the volunteers first that helped us test 425 members of our learning community from pre-K through high school. One young man walked up at 12:15 today and said, "My mom just signed me up. Can I get a test?" The answer is yes, you can. So, and to Katie's earlier point about our staff members, we had a staff member, I was trying to get a new appointment. The computer was frozen. I called her, she enrolled, boom, within 30 seconds. It's an amazing age we live in. So 425 tests were completed this morning. We hope to have those tests back in 48 to 72 hours. Curative, our company, is saying that even with the surge, they're trying to turn the tests around within 48 hours of receiving them. And as far as I can tell, they're doing a pretty good job of that. We had more good news today from Pitkin County Health that has been able to wrangle support from the state. So we will be able to continue our weekly asymptomatic testing program through at least the end of March. And so much thanks to Pitkin County Health for that. Regarding being open this week, Stephanie said, she's looking at the data and making the best decision she can. And I have to tell you, we're doing that as well. The senior administrative team will tell you that they hate hearing from me as we go into these things, because I am, I've every single time the metrics change, I'm like, look, we've got 3 all the way over in the red. Now we're coming out of the red with 2. That's good, that sort of thing. So, if there's one thing that's really consuming a lot of bandwidth right now, it's COVID-19. And so the decision to not go to a remote week was based on many, many factors. And I think you have to understand that when you have doctors saying, well, there's really good arguments for a remote week and there's really great arguments for going back to school. And, you got one on one shoulder and one on the other, and then you get 2 on one shoulder, and then, and it just keeps going like that. And so there is no perfect solution. So, Tamara, I hear you, and we're watching it like a hawk. And if we have to pivot to remote, we will. And there is guidance through Pitkin County Health that if you have X amount of cases, this may happen. And that's part of the reason we continue to have ongoing conversations on a weekly basis. If this happens, then we'll look at this. So overwhelmingly, there is a need for students in school, and overwhelmingly countries and school districts are trying to get students into school because the data suggests the kids are at far greater risk from other things than COVID-19 than from transmission in the schools. And we also know that when kids aren't in schools, they're doing other stuff, which might explain some of the surge in numbers in the last couple of weeks in our county for children, right? They've been out, they've been in daycares, they've been cross-pollinating, if you will. And so it gets really tricky and really messy. And we talked at length with Pitkin County Health, and they said, well, I'm thinking about remote, and I'm thinking about going in person. And I said, well, remote, if you can guarantee lots of testing, would be great. I said, well, I can't guarantee it. I can only, our testing's voluntary. And, in Colorado and in public schools, we don't get to enjoy the same rules that, private or parochial schools do. I can't mandate universal testing as a condition of employment. I'd love to, but I can't. So I'm not gonna. And I can't mandate it for our students. I wish I could, but I can't. So I'm not gonna. And so I have to rely on community and community intention and community goodwill. And after Thanksgiving, our community had showed us that, like you, they were willing to make the sacrifice. And so, we're hoping that they did that. And we found that travel in and of itself isn't necessarily a spreading event. It's the gathering, right? It's the gathering of people in bars and in restaurants and in dinner parties and things like that. That's what seems to be spreading and continuing to spread. So you have to make a decision. And when all the experts are saying, Dave, there's no guarantee either way, but you're probably better off having the kids in school because they're there, the teachers are there, the teachers know how to make sure the kids are wearing the masks and that we're encouraging the social distancing and the hand washing, and you're probably better off with the kids in school. And then when I reach out to some of your colleagues and they're like, please open, we're split, right? As a community, we're split as to the right response. So at the end of the day, this is what keeps me up at night. I'm sure it does you. And so this district has done the layers of mitigation approach since we first tried to open, and we continue to do that. We're even looking at new shields at the moment for the schools. You know, even though there's no real data that says it's good, it feels good to have that plastic shield around you, right? When I go to Lowe's and that person's behind that shield, I'm really glad for that person and myself, right? So there is no perfect answer. And so to the community, what I can say to you is there's no guarantee. And we've talked about risk assessment, risk mitigation since we first began this conversation. And, you know, we're going to be talking about it for a long time, because it's going to be a long, long time until our entire community has access to vaccinations. And then there's no guarantee the whole community is going to get them. So we're going to be wearing masks for a long time. It's going to require vigilance for a long time. We're going to be approaching layered mitigation. We're going to have to continue to be flexible and to continue to bring the can-do attitude that, you know, our teachers and our families are bringing to the work. And you know, for at least the balance of this year, if not into next fall, you know. So it's a long haul, and it's kind of regrettable, but we're going to continue to look at the data. I'm going to continue to seek advice from different groups, and try to make the best decision in real time as to what's best for our community. So I did want to address that as part of my update. I think we have the principals are ready to give us a quick snapshot of how things are going. And why don't we kick it over to the principals, unless there's any questions about what I've shared so far from the board. Okay, good. So Chris, are you available?
Yes, I am.
Take it away.
Okay, so a lot of things going on. I'll try to keep it brief and succinct. So prior to break, we had test results come in, and the test results come in when they come in, you know, so they may arrive midday, they may arrive in the evening. We don't have any control over that. So we did have to do some quarantining of some specific classrooms, as well as some buses, which was regrettable, but it's what we had to do. So fast forwarding to today, it was a pretty great day in the elementary school. So we're back, and just a lot of great energy in the air. Of course, a little bit of hesitancy and some fear to get around, but that's completely understandable. But the kids looked joyful, and most of the teachers were in a really, really good place as well too. And so we're already focused on our STAR testing. We wouldn't normally do this the week after a break, but with the future being as uncertain as it can.
You're muted.
We just lost Chris audio. Can you try again, Chris?
Chris, we can't hear you.
This month as well, and our report cards come out at the end of January. But I'm very, very excited to look at this data, because anecdotally, the teachers have told me, and this shift happened right around December 1st. They said, you know, Chris, the kids are really getting it, you know, so we really are getting our feet underneath us, and 5 days a week having the kids in front of us, there's just no substitute for that. And so I'm optimistic to see how we're doing. And yeah, there's the COVID job, and then there's the teaching and learning job. I love the teaching and learning job, but I got to do both. So we're watching the numbers, doing everything possible to keep our staff safe, our kids safe. We did a welcome back video, Miss Lowe and myself today, which reminded and showed the kids how to wear masks, to have computers and Chromebooks with them when they leave every day, in the event that we have to do some quarantining and some remote learning and teaching. But other than that, it feels great to be back. And yeah, it was a very, very positive energy in the building today.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Theron or Jason, I don't think we have Liz with us tonight.
Yeah, Liz unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, so I'm going to let Jason do the report for AMS.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. It's good to see you all. I hope everyone had a good break and got some rest. It was great to see all of our teachers come back today. They looked pretty spry and pretty eager to be back. And it seemed like they were very excited to see our kids. So we were happy to have both kids and teachers back in the building. We had testing out in front of our building today. We were really concerned that a 7:45 start time with testing and kids being dropped off and all sorts of things going on with traffic out in front, but it all worked out really well. We had all 450 some odd students and families tested, and it seemed to flow pretty well. We were fortunate to have a couple of buses come in a little late. That's the first time we ever wanted that. And so we didn't have any traffic issues. It worked out really well. We had 90 students that were 5th and 6th graders that came in to got tested. We pulled them out of classrooms and got those students tested, and they did a really good job, and they know the routine now. So it's been nice to see everyone take advantage of it. Our kids were excited to be in school. I definitely went around quite a bit and polled students to see how they felt about being back in the building. And a lot of our kids were very happy to be here. We also had 10 of our SLC students, Student Learning Center students, were our 8th graders that were in the building. And we're happy to have them here. A lot of them are going into classrooms and working with teachers. We have 21 students on a list for 7th grade that we're hoping to get into the building. We're in the process of trying to build a robust program for both 7th and 8th grade to have the SLC running up until we get 7th and 8th grade back in the building full time. Today, our attendance, we had about 28% of our students of our 5th graders were learning remotely, and about 40% of our 6th graders were learning remotely. So those numbers definitely went up in terms of the students that were learning remotely as they went into the 6th grade level. We anticipated it would be similar for 7th and 8th grade, but we're hopeful with the testing going on and as the week progresses, we'll get more students in the building. We currently have about 14 teachers who are out. And so it was a bit of a juggle today to try to get some coverage for the teachers that needed coverage today, but we managed. We had it worked out. All of our staff jumped on board. Everybody was kind of all hands on deck. So we got a lot of our folks got their duties covered, got their lunches covered. Everyone had a chance to get a break. So that worked out really well for us. We're very happy with our staff. Our 7th and 8th grade teams came down and helped out quite a bit too. So that was a big help. Overall, we felt like it was a successful day. We anticipate that we'll continue to have some good progress with getting more students in the building as the week goes on, and hopefully next week as well. We'll have to see what happens when our test results come back in about 48 to 72 hours. Apart from that, I think it was pretty smooth today. We were concerned that it was going to be a rough day, but it went pretty well.
Jason,
Yes.
So when you said you anticipated it'll be the same in 7th and 8th grade, are you talking about the step up will be the same from 5th to 6th, and then from 6th to 7th, and then from 7th to 8th?
So as we look at attendance rates from prior to the break, when we had our hybrid model, we were at about 50% of students attending and 50% remotely attending. And so we anticipate that might be the same, but we're not really sure. We think that the vacation, kind of getting the holidays behind us a little bit, we may see some more students attending. It's hard to tell at this point. But with 6th grade this week, we did see 40% of our students, 60% here in the building and 40% at home.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Jason, are there different numbers of teachers, of primary classroom teachers that have accommodations in the different grade levels? I've heard from some parents just a concern about when there's a sub, whether it's worth it for their child, quote unquote, worth it for their child to go in. And I'm curious if those, we'll see when we get 7th and 8th grade, and I'm curious whether some of the attendance issues could be correlated to whether they have a sub or whether they have a teacher in the classroom?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I had one parent write me the other day, and that was a deciding factor to whether or not they would keep their child, have them go to school or stay home remotely. It was whether or not their actual teacher was going to be physically present in the classroom. So the accommodations are impacting some of the parent decisions in terms of the students who will be showing up live in person. So that is a factor. And we do have sort of a disproportionate number of teachers at certain grade levels that are receiving accommodations as compared to other grade levels. For example, we might have 2 or 3 in one grade level versus 1 in another grade level. So that's impacting it as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And I have one more question. I recall that in December, we had some asynchronous days to accommodate testing schedules. I was curious when we were gonna get an update on how that went.
The testing?
Yeah, some updated results. And I don't know whether we're waiting to do everybody or, every school or what, but it occurred to me that we hadn't followed up on that.
Yeah, I think that I've done some cursory looks at the data, and 5th grade, we saw a nice bump. I haven't put anything together just because I think the district can probably present it as a, lock, stock, and barrel type of thing, but I'll give you just a general update. We, at the 5th and 6th grade, we saw some bumps in performance, and at 7th grade, we saw a little bit of a flat, maybe 1 percentile point drop. And in 8th grade, we saw a bump as well. And of course, per your request, we went ahead and tested all of our 8th graders for the regular STAR test. So that probably impacted a little bit of why we saw that bump at 8th grade. And I think I pulled something earlier where I was able to pull a lot of those algebra students out just to see what the difference was, and it looked pretty flat there. So I think our biggest concern, which was 5th grade, is where we saw actually the most growth. So we were happy with that. And I think that under the circumstances, we're happy to be hanging on with what we do have, and that we're getting that they're maintaining a little bit. It would be nice to see more growth, but we're happy to see that they're maintaining at least a little bit, along with everybody else in the country.
So Dave, just back to you at some point when it's appropriate to, I don't know if it's January or February, but I'd love to get an update on all that for across the district. Of course.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're looking at something around mid-February, or the first in February, first board meeting in February, ideally.
And Sarah, are we ready for Sarah?
I'm here if you're ready. Happy New Year, everybody. I hope everyone's rested, relaxed, had lots of outdoor time, and my sympathies to those people whose children had to quarantine or who had to quarantine. We had to do that over Thanksgiving. It's never fun to tell your kid they have to stay home. So here at the high school, I'll start with an update about we're still in the remote learning model. Our ESS students are still coming into the building as they have been since school started. The week before our winter break, I invited students in their cohorts, any students who wanted to come in and learn, that they were welcome to come into the building for some supervised learning. So any student that felt like they needed a change of environment, more structure, better internet, some socialization because their peers are there, they were welcome to come in. I didn't have that many people that wanted to do it. For this week, I had 30 families that had initially signed up, but after communicating with me over the weekend, we had 9 students come in today. So we opened it up to all the other students who had indicated their interest to come and be a part of supervised learning. Again, this is really targeting more of the social, emotional, and structure of a day than actual instruction. These students are not going from class to class. So for 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, they're in the commons, teachers are stopping by, kids were able to go see teachers that wanted to. And like I said, we're gonna have hopefully we had about 28 signed up for next week. So we invited all of them to come in for the rest of this week and next week as well. So hopefully we'll have, you know, around 40 students taking advantage of that. And again, it's very free in the sense that they can access the cafe, you know, they can shoot a teacher an email and say, you know, can I come speak with you? And I think the change of environment, we are hearing reports that I think students are feeling really isolated at home, and we want to be cognizant of that. However, given the huge numbers, to have students come in, to have half the school come in and rotate through 8 classes was not really feasible at this point. That is the goal, obviously, for second semester. Our final exams will be remote. With the exception of our ESS kids, they will still come in and take their exams in a remote format with the support of their case managers. But we went with a fully remote final exam model just for equity's sake, not to give some students preference over another. And it would be really difficult to do final exams in a hybrid model, again, ensuring equity for all. Right now, I am hearing some, you know, our staff really wants to have final exams, one, so that they can showcase what students have learned, understanding that the content they have covered is probably not exactly what it has been in years past. So really using it as that guideline of, okay, where are kids in terms of their learning? Can I compare them to students prior years? Although I am hearing, you know, from a couple students and parents that some schools have done away with final exams, and that maybe, you know, Aspen High School should do that as well, since it's been such an unusual year. Again, it's this fine line that we have to balance of, we want kids to be held accountable. We want them to, you know, have that opportunity to show what they've learned, and then also to put to have teachers allow students to showcase their learning in different ways. Our teachers should not be giving full comprehensive multiple choice exams. That makes no sense in a remote format. And I've shared a lot of resources with our staff about creative ways to assess student learning. In a remote world, a lot of those deal with technology and different platforms. Certainly the Rocket Books are a great tool so students can actually write. I think we can all agree that a student's articulating their thinking in writing is the very best way to figure out what they know, or to have them present to you or problem solve. So I know some of our math teachers are thinking about some creative options of giving students problems that are already solved, but they're solved incorrectly. So then students need to then work through them. So I do have teachers thinking outside the box to assess student learning, and I think it is important. We are also in the midst right now of getting our second semester courses. We're making sure that the courses that are running are full and meeting the needs of kids, and seeing where we need to make some tweaks. We're also redoing crew for semester 2 by grade levels. This is really from students, and I think it's the best thing. We are going to introduce the CAS project to all juniors. So that means all juniors will be in a crew, so it'll just be 11th graders. We're also putting the IB diploma students in their own crew groups. That's easier for Eileen and Mark to have conversations with them. And similarly, we're looking at students with advanced learning plans and putting them in designated crew groups so that we can address some of their needs and think about how to challenge them in the appropriate ways. So I'm excited about some of those changes for crew, because I think crew has not been as successful as it could have been this semester. So I'm excited about that. We are also getting ready to do course registration. That comes really quickly in February. So we have new course proposals coming out. They're due from staff members at the end of January. Those will then be vetted by students, then the leadership team, and then the staff. Tomorrow, students are actually getting a survey about what IB courses they might be interested in addition to the ones that we already offer. Again, thinking about how we added a lot of IB courses this year based on student and staff feedback from last year. So again, trying to meet the needs of all students as we think about IB for all. So there's some, interesting things on the horizon there. STAR testing, Becky will be getting that going, it kind of coincides with exams. So we will be doing that mid-year STAR testing for all of our students. So we'll have that data piece to report back, and hopefully we've made some gains. And we're already starting to think about the end of the year. So I know project graduation is up and running. I actually, just in case, talked to Skiko, and Buttermilk is I penciled in case we aren't allowed to do the tent. I didn't want that to get away from us because people were booking that up. We're already thinking about creative solutions for prom and our scholarship ceremony. So we're pretty much going to do double planning. Depending on what we're going to be allowed to do, we're going to do some double planning. We're going to hope we can have the standard celebrations that Aspen's accustomed to. But if not, I know we'll be able to figure out an alternative. So we're just going to plan for all of those. And I'm sure there's a lot more, but that's what we have right now. So any questions?
Dwayne, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Obviously I've got a couple of kids there in the high school, and so I'm obviously completely biased. So I apologize. There's several folks on the call here as well the same way. Appreciate you pushing the kids, giving them access. Appreciate you and your entire team trying to, spur some motivation. It's difficult. I sympathize. I'm right there in the same spot. And I also appreciate you putting a bit of an advance notice to Skiko, for the buttermilk. What you and Theron and the rest of the team did last year obviously was an amazing, I don't even want to use the word substitute, just a tremendous honoring and I think recognition for the kids and how they worked. And so it was just equally powerful and impactful. And so I appreciate you putting that in place. And let's hope that that's plan B and we don't have to go there, but at the same moment it becomes plan A. And like I said, it was absolutely beautiful. So thank you for thinking about the kids, and job well done.
Thanks, Dwayne.
Sarah, thanks. I have one question related to some of our conversations we've had about the middle years program.
Mm-hmm.
And given that, the high school needs to start planning in terms of course schedule as far before everybody else does based on the complexity. Is that part of the planning for next year of how some of that might be implemented, if there'll be some different class options for different kids, or does that come to play at all, or is that something that is down the line?
It's a little bit down the line, but we actually already, great question, Katie, in math, they are already using the MYP texts. So I do have a meeting with the math department. IB is a much more integrated approach in terms of, language and skill set. So I will be meeting with math just to hear their ideas. Megan reached out to me over the holidays. So we can think about how are we ensuring that kids are able to access the highest level math if they choose to. And that really does mean we have to, it is more of a, a K-12 as we've discussed, but there are some things that we can be doing it from an integrated approach for for 9th and 10th. Just because right now where kids come in, unless they double up for 2 years of math, they're pretty much decided which IB course they're going to go into in 8th grade. So once I talk to them, I'll be able to update you more on what that integrated approach would look like and what that would mean for options for students. In terms of 10th grade, the 10th grade usually includes for MYP a personal project. And so that had begun when we had a teacher who left. So I know that Diane Godfrey, as she's thinking about a lot of this project based, is looking at how to integrate that into her sophomore class. So we are thinking about how to get some of those pieces up and running so that if we do make that switch to MYP, we will have done a lot of the work. So hopefully that answers your question. Oh, and one more thing I just wanted to announce because I'm here in the board meeting. We will have that Holocaust remembrance ceremony on February 11th. And our own Jeremy Martin is going to deliver the keynote Our choir is performing, our band is performing, pre-recorded ahead of time. And then a handful of our theater students are performing as well. So that will be on February 11th, and it will be live streamed, pre-recorded, except that the rabbi would like me to do live remarks from the district theater and then go to the pre-recorded live stream. So that's also in the works too, trying to get some of our performing arts, involved, since they have been so limited due to COVID.
That's fantastic. One question, is there any consideration about opening that up to the older middle school students as well?
Yes, so they've been invited, and not in terms of participation. They had very few parts, but yes, so 7th and 8th grade have been invited, as well as all the middle schools and high schools up and down the valley. I haven't really had any takers, but I will re-communicate. I feel like I didn't communicate before the holidays. There was too much going on, but so I'll communicate with them this week. We're going to do some recordings this week.
It would be great to open it up, on the website to parents as well, the whole community.
Absolutely,
it's a great
absolutely.
event.
I'd asked Stephanie, I know she's got a full plate, but I said if we could get some artwork done from one of our art students, then we could actually have a really nice visual and get that on the website. So we have until February 11th, but I just thought I'd let you all know to mark your calendars.
Thank you. Dave, back to you for, we have left the principal search update and the January learning models.
Well, sure. Why don't I turn it over to Dan? He's been riding herd on that. We've got a nice pool developing for the principal search update, but I'll turn it over to Dan to talk about where we are and what's going on with that. So Dan?
Hey everybody, good evening, and thanks, Dave. Yeah, so as of this morning, we have a pool of applicants that has increased to 21. Preliminary review of the pool looks like we are continuing to attract good candidates, quality candidates with a lot of background and experience in education. So I'm very pleased with how that pool is starting to fill out. As a reminder, the search is open through the end of this week, at which point we will be reviewing the pool in its totality and making a determination about whether or not we want to extend that closing date or leave the pool as is and begin the screening process. I put out a call just before break to get our first official search committee meeting started. I'm still waiting back on a few responses and plan to follow up this week on that, at which point we would huddle that search committee together, kind of set some expectations and do some norming surrounding things like HR best practices and confidentiality and use of an evaluation rubric. So all of that is upcoming, and hopefully we'll be able to get together this week, provided everybody has availability. Also, just before the break, we distributed a survey to staff and parents regarding some of the work that had been done in the past regarding qualities and attributes and desired traits in the successful candidates. So we've been synthesizing that feedback. Dr. Baugh and I actually have a meeting later this week to kind of discuss the feedback and themes. And so there may or may not be some changes made to the structure of the search as a result of that feedback, but we've not had an opportunity to fully digest and discuss it yet, but we are moving on that front just as quickly as we can. I think those are the high points. If there's anything else that folks are interested in specifically, I'd be happy to take questions or expand upon any of those points as well.
No, Dan, I just wanted to, I thought the overview document was great, and also the clarification of different things and the questions in there. I was just wanting to understand, were you getting a lot of questions from people about this process versus previous ones?
Yeah, so there was understandably, folks have been accustomed to a particular process for a long period of time. There's an aspect of change management, and it was important to us to kind of explain why the changes were happening, particularly in some of those areas where maybe on the surface it didn't make a great deal of sense or wasn't immediately obvious, and kind of just working through all those points in terms of, well, anecdotally, this seems like a good idea, but maybe there's some legal risk or some legal consideration that might not make it a good idea. And so it's something that we're not going to continue this time around. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I thought it was clear in the document that was sent out. And, I think our processes in the past have some of them have even had issues just for the huge amount of people that were in them, actually getting to completion and things like that. So I thought the process and what you guys designed was a nice kind of in between. It's still a fairly large group to get input from all parts of the community. And I think we need to continue to kind of move that to more, kind of like an administration thing, obviously with key points from the community, but, we need to go also understand that we're in a change management process and we kind of need to take it slow. But I thought it was a good progress on that front. So thanks for that.
Good deal. Thank you.
Dan, thanks for the inputs and thanks for your leadership on this process for sure. Katie, are you a member of that team, the committee for the search?
I am, yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Do we have anyone else? That's super good. Do we have anyone else? Susie, is anyone else on there?
At the moment, Katie is our sole board member.
Yeah. No, I
Wayne,
think
do you think you would you were on the previous search committee, right? Would that be helpful for you to be on this one again?
I'm you son of you turkey. I wasn't. Nope. I stepped right in the bucket. I think Katie is like superstar. Katie's great for it. I think it plays consistent with the direction and the theme that Dan is together with district leadership has organized here towards some sort of effective and efficient structure. I don't want to be a fifth wheel here. So, but thank you, Susan.
That was where you were going.
If I may, there will come a time when the full board will be asked to participate in the reviewing of the final candidates. I just want to make sure, just in the same way, we're going to include, open forums, and Zoom is allowing us to be even more expansive than historically possible. I remember running the marathon in the slate in like the 3 pre-COVID days we had. But there will come a time when the finalists will get to meet with various stakeholder groups, one of which will, of course, be the board. So, and the full board will have that opportunity. But we are trying to, as Dan said, manage some change management and also be a little leaner, a little meaner, and try to get more effective, frankly, than perhaps things were in the past.
Sounds great.
Yeah, thank you.
Want to add that 2 bits. We'll be tapping you all on the shoulder soon, Dwayne. Don't you worry.
I'm not. Thank you.
So Dave, any more to your update?
No, I think, Susie, just wanted to really be clear with the community that, we do understand the pros and cons of where we are today. We are trying very hard to be open in person. As several of the teachers that I reached out to last week said, we could be remote right up front, or some of us may be remote in a little bit. Either way, that's this year. So, we are going to try to be as open as possible moving forward. That's what we're trying to do, because we know that's the right thing for kids. And actually, I do believe it is safer for teachers. So we are moving in that direction. We are, aware that first semester ends in a couple weeks, and then second semester starts January 26th. And I know we don't like to use dates, but I think we also talked about using dates in conjunction with the school calendar. And so this is where we're really kind of looking at trying to get back to more in-person learning, trying to better meet the needs of the kids in person. So that's basically where we are now. And, as I said earlier, we continue to monitor this super closely. It's pretty much, as Chris Bastian said, there's the COVID job, then there's the teaching and learning job. And at the moment, COVID is kind of the tail wagging the dog, but it's an important tail. So we will continue to monitor it and base decisions on what's happening in our academic community, and also being aware of the greater community of Pickens County.
Dave, for the community benefit, could you just summarize what the current learning model is for the elementary school. I just want to make sure everybody knows we're 5 days, we're not asynchronous, as well as for the middle school and the high school. Since there have been quite a few changes over the last few months, just sort of the state of what the current is.
We continue to adjust things, right? You know, things have been evolving. We are pre-K through 6th grade, open 5 days a week for in-person learning. As Jason captured, attendance was, we were missing around 25% of 5th grade and almost 40% of 6th grade, but attendance in the elementary school was phenomenal. In fact, I don't have the percentages, but we had 35 students physically out today. Let's see, 4 excused absences, 2 were at the doctor's, 1 was technically sick, 10 were still on vacation. And then 6 were out with COVID-like symptoms, and then 12 were absent. We're not quite sure why. The rest, there's about 25 or so also opting for the online version of schooling. So attendance was really pretty good at the elementary school. Grade 7 and 8 is remote learning. High school is remote learning. I believe Wednesdays are still asynchronous at the high school, and they're using that time for some intense interventions, bringing students onto campus and doing that sort of thing. So, okay. And anyone who has questions is welcome to reach out to their principals or assistant principals, and they will answer any of those questions for them. So if the kids are saying, no, we're asynchronous on Tuesdays, I'm going to the mountain, that's not true.
In particular, Wednesdays. Yes, they need to be in school. They cannot go skiing all day every week.
No, they can't.
All
No,
right.
and that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. I think we'll give you another 5 minutes next meeting. We'll go up in increments of 5 minutes until we're actually within our, but it was great. It was great. Thank you. So board member update 6.4. Anybody have anything they want to announce?
I'd just like to, first of all, thank Picken County Health for providing testing for us through the end of March. It's huge. It was finding an accurate test that is easily managed by our team was no small feat. So we're really excited to be continuing to use the curative tests. I would like to highly encourage our entire community of staff and students to please test. It is really, really, really important to help mitigate spread, especially asymptomatic spread, which is why we're doing this testing. So please, I've heard a lot of stuff about downsides and all this. The test takes 30 seconds. It's a mouth swab. It's not painful. Even the youngest preschool kids are able to do it. Even some of them even by themselves now. So please, bring your kids in, sign them up ahead of time, and staff, we will sign you up. Then if you don't sign up ahead of time, it does help us if you sign up ahead of time to make it more efficient. But if you haven't done it, don't not come in because you haven't signed up. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, Susan, Jonathan, Dwayne, should we move on to January agenda items?
All good here.
Okay, great. Any pressing agenda items any people would like to add? We're hoping to get a DAC update on things, among other issues, senior exit surveys, hopefully soon. We're hoping to get maybe some update from our leadership on match schools at some point. We've been talking about that for 5 or 6 or 7 years. And I think it's getting close to time where we should actually make some decisions. But I think maybe Theron and Dave are going to look into that. Great. Any other items people would like to add?
Where are we in the IB pre-K-12 process? Like, what's the next step for that?
Dave?
Sure. Part of what we are scheduling are some talks with the various school communities about what IB would look like in those communities. We have not scheduled those yet. We've been doing our due diligence and we are teed up to, but between the holidays and COVID, things are just taking a little longer than ideally. Maybe if the board wanted to cancel the holidays for next year, we could get a lot more done. Feel free.
So that's a February thing, not a January. I mean,
Yeah, no.
That's kind of what I was asking.
No,
The other part of that is meeting with those leadership teams at the schools and getting some of that work done. Katie, that's going to take some time.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else, Theron, that we should be, the board?
As far as our next steps, I know that we're very fortunate to have the IB coordinator working at the high school to be working out and doing a lot of outreach with a lot of the next steps that need to happen with that. And then also just we're in this campaign to familiarize the whole system on the different facets of the PYP and MYP program. So we're trying to flesh that out as well. And to Susie's conversation about match schools, I think that's going to be very important for us to find those right schools to be kind of a North Star for us as we go through this process.
Thank you. And then Eliza, I think I'm hoping you and Dave will come up with some policies that we can start approving or putting in our consent agenda. Does that sound?
Yeah, I think we're just gonna go straight down the line. We just have to start with that. So we'll put 3 to 4 in moving forward.
Great, look forward to it. Thank you. And then
I had one, Susie.
Go ahead.
Just so that we schedule, I don't know if it's the next meeting or the one after to start. I know we had asked Dave so we can start getting our hands around the bond and the first priorities, kind of your review of that, since I know you haven't had a chance. So it doesn't have to be in the next 15 days or whatever, but we should start getting on that so that, you get your input into the priorities there for the bond expenditures. So of all the different projects, which ones do we need to prioritize?
So we're
ideas.
We actually have a meeting scheduled for Wednesday morning with Gilbert and Kari Ellen, and it's kind of a briefing on the work that they had done. And I think Susan, and I'm hoping Dwayne will be able to join, as well as Linda and myself, so that we can really have that refresh occur. And, we don't want to reinvent the wheel, as it were, in terms of prioritization of the projects. So mapping what we told, the public we're going to do to what, Kari Ellen and Gilbert have kind of worked up for us is part of the reason for the meeting on Wednesday.
Okay. Go ahead.
Susan or Dwayne, any comments before we move on to 7 action items?
Yeah, I just had a question for Linda about when we would potentially get a letter from the auditors and maybe some sort of feedback from them.
So I'm back. I received this morning when I got in a preliminary audit report. So I'm digesting that and kind of going through things now. So, time is of the essence. We need to get this ball moving. And I'm hoping, I don't want to overcommit because it seems like, sometimes we get pushed aside, I guess, a little bit on our auditing firm. And when I think that they're about done, they move us to the back of their line. It's looking like by the next board meeting, we should have something, but I would like to have them do some type of presentation to the FAB and we're meeting next Monday on the FAB to start going through items that they recognize and stuff.
So is there, I know we got sort of an extension for them to finish the audit, and how long does that go? What's the time frame?
It goes till March.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a 90-day extension, but we have some other filing that we need to do. It's through this organization called DAC, and it's bond disclosures of things, and we have a due date coming up with them in 30 days. And so we need to have, especially if, Dan O'Connell is going out to market, we need to have all this stuff filed, and time is of the essence. But according to, the state auditor's office, we're in compliance until the end of March. But we need to not push this out any longer than 1 month. It needs to be wrapped up in January.
If you need a board member to, ask the audit firm how they're coming, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let me know.
I just got the whole mound of paperwork looking through, and I have a few questions for them, but just trying to put it all into perspective. But they know that we are in a time crunch, and I think I've made my plea to our audit firm to please put us at the top of their queue and get our stuff done.
Yeah. The next year, when we're interviewing new audit teams, can we ask them which ones are on time generally?
Absolutely. I think that's a great question. And I also would like to really emphasize we need to have audited financials by November, no later than mid-November. Yeah. And so what can they do if something comes up, somebody gets sick or whatever we have when we're in a smaller school district? Can they provide us resources to help us meet that timetable? And I think that there needs to be penalties on the auditor's part of it. If they can't meet that timetable, they've got to help us a little bit.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I just wanted to check in and see what was going on with it.
No, thank you, Susan. I appreciate it.
All right, so now shall we move on to action items 7? And I'm going to do a little Dwayne trick where he proposed moving 7.2 to the consent agenda. Any objection to moving 7.2 to the reimbursement resolution, which we've already spent a lot of time on? Great, so we just have 7.1 annual agenda planning. Move to approve any changes to the calendar, including meeting dates and times. And I would just point out that the next meeting is on a Tuesday instead of a Monday. Any other significant calendar changes people want to mention? Let's go to consent action items. It'll be 8.1, 8.2, the easy grant, 8.3 personnel items, and 7.2, the reimbursement resolution. Do we have a motion to approve?
Just point of clarification first. The date was changed on that resolution already, just to make sure that correction.
Yeah, correct. In the board docs now it's changed. So you're approving the one that is stated for today's date.
Any motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Eliza, call roll.
Sure. Katie Frisch.
Aye.
Susan Marolt.
Aye.
Jonathan Nickel.
Aye.
Dwayne Romero.
Aye.
And Susie Zimmett.
Aye.
So moved. Thank you.
And future agenda items. I don't think any of you have any bullets that you want to move to the top. We kind of look at the same bullets meeting to meeting. At some point, we'll want to find out when we're going to pursue with Ann Delahunt our strategic planning and accountability, how to monitor policies. Since we're starting monitoring policies, any idea, Dave, when would be a good time to do that? You're muted.
I have to flip back and forth between board docs and the screen, so I always turn off. Anyway, you didn't need to know that. So it sort of depends on when the board would like to do that work. She is available and happy to continue working with us. Whether we want to wait till the spring when, by then I'm sure the COVID numbers will be way down, I hope. Or if we want to go sooner, it just depends on what.
Any thoughts from Dwayne, Susan, Katie, Jonathan?
I sort of feel like we have our hands full with this, with the bond stuff and trying to prioritize the strategic planning. I know it's about strategic planning, so that's where it gets a little complicated, but if we're on a 90-day window to try to get something underwritten, I'm not sure it makes time to spend a half a day or a full day with a
So we
consultant.
could think about maybe May or June, something like that. Would that sound good to you? May or June?
It sounds good to me.
Okay, great.
Yeah, good point.
We'll get on Ann's radar for May or June and try to put something together that makes sense.
So I guess the only other things I wanted to add is just, going through, I know you guys are working hard on this IB, becoming an IB school thing. But I'd love to have it in the calendar so we know kind of what we're aiming for to be able to move forward on that. And then the other thing that I mentioned to Dave, but I'm not sure I actually mentioned in a public meeting, I would love to talk, and I don't know if this is in February or whether it's in March, but sooner rather than later, about the concept of summer school. In the press, they have started talking about funding for this. With the new administration coming in, I think that some of that is going to happen. And I think we need to start thinking about what that would look like for us if we were to do it, and how we do it. And also, more importantly, if we're considering it, the community needs to know, well in advance what we're considering so that plans can be made for people.
We can have something together by the second board meeting in February.
Perfect.
This is something we've sort of been tapping along anyway. Just everything.
Oh yeah. No, it's a lot. I'm not saying that it needs to be already done. I just think that from a community perspective, if we're trying to think about that, from a family scheduling, it would be important to get some initial thoughts out publicly.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. We'll have a draft proposal as well as estimate for the second board meeting in February. I know as a family person, you have to have that kind of lead time to plan your summer calendar. Not a problem.
That's filling up January and February, and I know Jonathan we've talked about doing an executive session to discuss superintendent's goals and progress. And we said in January and February, should we move that to March?
No.
I think we should try to get that
We
in.
need to make sure we get that nailed down so Dave has clarity about what we want to get done.
And February, does that sound reasonable?
End of January?
I would say end of January. Does that work for you, Dave, as well?
Sure.
Okay.
So executive session at the end of next meeting. Is that what I'm hearing? You would like, Jonathan?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay. All right. So debrief, Ken. Katie, will you debrief this meeting, please?
Sure. And I'll be quick, or at least I'll try to. Some great movement, I think, on getting the steps in place for the bond issuance and setting priorities for that. So thanks to everyone who's been working hard on that. There's a lot of little things to check along the way. So I'm super excited about that. In addition, I think it was great to hear that all the kids are back, K through 6, and we have a plan in place to have continual in-person learning. I'm very impressed with how all the staff and administration has been handling all the issues that COVID has thrown at us. So just excited for the rest of the year, and I think we had a it was good to listen to everybody. I think we should continue to, you know, allow enough time for updates from the various schools as well as the district office to make sure that we, you know, hear what's going on and continue to communicate that to the community at large.
Great, thank you. Any motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, real quick. Katie Frisch,
Aye.
Susan Marolt,
Aye.
Jonathan Nickel,
Aye.
Dwayne Romero,
Aye.
and Susie Zimmett.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank
Time is
you,
5:52.
All right.
Good job,
All right.
guys.
Happy
Thanks,
New Year,
everybody.
everyone.
Good work.
Thank you,
Thank God
guys.
it's
Happy
2020.
New Year, everyone.
Yep, good progress, good work. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks.
everyone. Great
Rock
job
and roll.
getting things going. All right.